Hey Divi Nation, thanks for joining us for day 62 of the Divi 100 Marathon. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 unique ways that you can style Divi's contact form module. In each example, I focus not only on the design of the contact form module itself, but how that module fits into the section or sections that it's placed in. The goal being to show you how you can often achieve the best design results by taking into consideration what's possible when you pair section settings, row settings, and even other modules with the primary module that you're working with. If you'd like to follow along as I create each of these contact form designs, you'll find all the code snippets and step-by-step instructions for each design in the accompanying blog post, which I've linked in the video description below. All right, let's get into it. In this video, I'm going to show you how to style the Divi contact form module in 5 unique ways. What we have here is an example of the default contact form module. It's pretty plain, pretty straightforward. It's just sort of a blank canvas to do whatever you want with it. And below it, I have 5 examples of different ways that I've styled this module with other elements to get some pretty unique sections that you could put on your website. So what I'm going to do is scroll back up to number 1, and I'm just going to walk you through the concept for each design and then how I achieved those designs on the back end. So number 1 here, I call this the fashion ghost or fashion musician contact form. And the whole concept here was just to create something that would look cool on a musician's website or a fashion editorial website. I thought this model had a little kind of a Beyonce thing going. So I found some imagery that I felt worked for this to be her background. And then I created some elements to go along with this contact form here and styled it so that it all kind of blended together into one seamless section. So let's take a look on the back end at how I created this. Okay, so this design consists of 2 sections, 2 rows, and 2 modules. Image module on the top, contact module on the bottom. So let's go through from section, row to module on each row or on each section here, and I will explain how I achieved the look on the front end. So let's get into the top sections settings. And all I did here was I uploaded a background image that I wanted to show through. And then I came down here and I selected the parallax effect. I also set the top margin to 0, or sorry, the top padding to 0, just to make sure that was a nice tight fit up top. There's nothing in the custom CSS panel, so really all you need is your background image here, parallax effect. I have it on true parallax and custom padding to 0. All right, moving on to the top row. I have this row full width. Custom gutter, I have it set to 0. Custom padding, I have the top set to 0. No advanced design settings and no CSS. Okay, let's get into the image module settings. All I did here was create an image where I would have a transparent background so that as I scrolled down, the parallax effect would show the gold brush strokes moving in the background behind my subject. Made sure that there's no space below the image. And in my custom margin, in my advanced design settings, I had force full width, always center image on mobile, and I set some custom values here for my margin, 0 at the top, -5 at the bottom. And there are no CSS additions. All right, so let's move on to the second section. In the section settings below, I set my background color to black to match the background image, the background color of the top image there. There is no CSS here. In the row settings, I use custom width. I wanted my contact form to only go out to 850 pixels. Advanced design settings, I don't have anything here, and I don't have anything in the CSS tab. Okay, so now we get into the contact form module itself. On the front end here, pretty standard, nothing special. I just kept the default fields, but you can of course add or subtract as you please. In the advanced design settings, I set the form background to transparent. And then I also changed the title font to Play Fair Display, made it all caps. I cranked the size up pretty high, up to 80. Title text color, I chose a gold. Actually selected that gold from the background image so that there'd be some consistency there. Form field text color, I wanted that to be white so it would show up. And again, I brought that gold color and styling into the button as well. And if you're creating this for yourself, you would just more or less play around with all these different settings to get the exact look that you want. For myself, I ended up just bringing the gold in, keeping it pretty plain, and making sure that the edges were more or less square. Now, here's where things get kind of cool, kind of interesting. In the Custom CSS tab under Main Element, I selected the margin the top margin, and I made that negative 250 pixels. And as I said in another video, if you create negative margin, what it does is it actually pulls your content in that direction. So since this is negative margin on the top, it's going to pull my contact form up. So at the bottom, I wanted to add some padding, and I created 150 pixels of padding. Okay, and then we have some CSS for the contact title. So text align, center, padding bottom, 50. And so what this does is it moved my talk to me text to the center and gave a little padding before we get to the form. And that's it. That's how it works. If you are following along, you would save those settings. And by the way, all of these settings, in case I'm moving too fast for you, which I understand if it feels like I'm moving a little fast, we've got 5 things to get through. So I don't want to belabor all the different points, but we have an accompanying blog post where you're going to be able to see all of these code snippets, all of these settings, and step-by-step screenshots of everything that we're going through here. Okay, so here's what that ended up looking like on the front end. Now let's move on to number 2. So the concept of number 2, I called color bars. And what I was thinking was that this is basically, something that might be on a marketing website or a networking website. I thought, I saw some inspiration images that had these bright colors with transparencies overlaying black and white images. So I thought I can do something like that. And I grabbed this image of this guy here. I created some custom text just with a paintbrush and sort of brought those things together in Photoshop as my background. And then I styled this so that each line of the contact form was basically just a color bar with some transparency applied to it. So let's actually look at the settings that I needed to accomplish this on the back end. Okay, so this design consists of just one section, one row, and one module, one contact form module. So let's jump into the section settings. And here you can see that I have my image with the guy and the Let's Connect text. Now, I wanted a transparent background here just in case I decided I would like to have a background color. So I have the background color set to white, but if I wanted to change that up, it would be very simple for me to get some variety that way. Turns out I liked it as white better than anything else, but I kind of like the idea of having that option open, so that's why I created it that way. Okay, so let's go to the row settings. All right, under general settings for the row, I chose to use custom width. Again, this was just to control the width of the actual contact form, and I chose 750 pixels. You might want to change that depending on your preferences. Custom padding, 450 pixels on the top and 200 on the bottom. Let's go to the advanced design settings. Didn't do anything there, and there's no custom CSS on the row. Okay, so now we can get into the module. So this is the color bars contact form. So there's actually not a whole lot that I do generally on the general settings tab. However, in this case, I need to go one layer deeper for the color bars design and actually go into each field to set its background color and transparency. So here we have in the advanced design settings our background color, and I've used the color picker here to find a color that I like, a transparency that I like, and I've set that. I've also set the main element margin at 0 all the way around, so it's just margin 0, and that's going to make sure that all of my bars, when they all have the same custom CSS setting added to them, they're all going to be nice and bunched up against each other. Additionally, on the general settings, I chose to make this full width so that it would span the entire width of the contact form and sort of stack above each other instead of right next to each other, the top two fields. Okay, so let's jump to the next one. Email, got in here. Same thing all the way around, made it full width. Found the color and transparency that I liked. And then I set the margin of the main element to 0. And same here with a different color. Again, main element margin at 0. Okay, so that's probably more than most of my other designs have on the general settings tab because we had to go one more layer deep. Over in the advanced design settings tab, not a lot done here. Basically just set everything else to black and white. So my form field text is black, my button is black and white. I just want something high contrast to go with the black and white images and the bright colors of the form. Now over in my custom CSS tab, the main element, I gave it a margin top of 75. And the contact button, margin top of 10, just to create some space between it and the form. And that's it. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Okay, so we're going to jump to the next design. Down here we have what I call the envelope RSVP design. So this was pretty simple. I just saw an inspiration image of a contact form overlaid on top of a envelope. I thought, that's kind of cool. I could see a lot of use cases for that. So this is my version, and let's take a peek at the back end so you can see how I achieved it. Okay, so this design consists of one section, one row, and one module. We're going to go through it step by step again, starting with the section. So in the section settings, I set the background color, and you can get this code in the blog post if you'd like it. And under custom CSS, I think I left it alone. So just the background color for the settings or of the section. And let's jump into the row. Okay, general settings on the row. Nothing. Keep it as is. Advanced design settings. Come down here to padding, column padding. So just for that column that my my module's in, I gave it 200 on the top, and that's just to allow the entire image of the envelope to be seen, because otherwise it would get cut off. And custom CSS. I don't think there's anything here. No, there's not. So that's all you really need to do on this one. All right, now we can get into the envelope form settings. This is the contact form. General settings, no changes here. Keep the same three form fields in their standard or in their default positions. However, in advanced design settings, here's what we do to get the look that we have. So form background color is white. I changed the title font to permanent marker, and I bumped that up to a size 60. The title text color, again, white to show up on that nice pink. And when we come down here to use border, I definitely wanted to use a border to get some separation. I set a border color of gray, a little bit darker than the gray of the envelope, again, to get some separation. Border width, 3 pixels, border style solid. And then I use custom button styles just, again, to create some contrast here. So button text color was white, background darker gray, and the font is bold in all caps. So that's really straightforward here. Now let's go into the custom CSS tab. Okay, so there's a few spaces here where we need to add some CSS. The first one is your main element. I put a top margin in of 180 pixels and padding of 25 pixels. So since it's just padding and not padding top, bottom, right, or left, it's going to be 25 pixels all the way around the main element. And contact title, I wanted to center that. That's the RSVP text. And I gave it a pretty large margin to kind of push it up on the page. So margin bottom, 200 pixels. And we can look at, that's all the settings. So we can look at what that achieved. So let me jump back to the front end real quick. So that margin on the bottom, push this up here, create that space in between these guys. And that padding in the row made it so that the whole of this image was visible or is visible. Okay, that is the envelope contact form. Going down to number 4. So this is the postcard contact form, and the concept is pretty simple. I just wanted a cool background image that looked like it could be on a postcard. And to help out with that, I added some postcard-y elements to the back. This is just included in the in the background image in like Photoshop. And then I pulled colors directly from the image to color the rest of my form. I kept the form very basic, but I just used the same colors and positioned it a bit with some custom CSS so that it overlapped some of these elements and looked much more like it was part of a card, as opposed to just happened to be the background of a section. So let's jump in the back end and take a look at how I accomplished that. Okay, so this design consists of one section, one row, 2 columns, and 1 contact form module. So let's jump into the section settings. Here's the background image. You can see I've got those postcard style elements added to the image in the top there. So it kind of looks just like a blank postcard as it is, but then we lay our interactive contact form on top of it, and it brings a really novel look to the whole section. Don't believe there's anything in the custom CSS. Okay, let's jump to the row settings. All right, so in the general settings for the row, I added some padding to the top and to the bottom, 250 pixels each. Nothing in advanced design settings, and nothing in custom CSS. So the row, again, pretty simple. Custom padding, top and bottom. Okay, so now we jump into the contact form module itself over here in the right-hand side, the second column. Nothing changes here in the general settings tab. Jump to the advanced settings. Select a form background color. Again, I just selected this from the image and placed it in here. Set my font to Roboto Condensed, made it bold, made it all caps, bumped it up to 35. Selected my text color for that title. And did the same thing for the button. Okay, so then we go into the custom CSS tab. Now, in the custom CSS tab, this is where we get some kind of unique positioning. And you're probably, if you're doing the same thing, depending on the size of your background, depending on the size of your contact form, you may want to mess around with these numbers. But for me, the right position of my contact form to get the overlap with the image elements there is right margin, negative 200 pixel, left margin, 200 pixels, top margin, negative 25 pixels. And what that did for me was it overlapped this right here with that background element to make it look like it was all kind of integrated into an actual postcard. Okay, so moving on, we have our 5th and final contact form design. And so this was a design that I saw, I think it was just like a mock-up that I found on Pinterest, and I really thought it was a cool material design kind of feel to it. And I wanted to see if I could pull it off with Divi. And after some tinkering, I was able to do it. So let me show you how in the back end. All right, so this is a design that requires 2 sections, 2 rows. On the top section, there's 2 columns. On the bottom section, there's 3. And I'm not really going to focus on the text here and here simply because it's not that important. It's just filler text. I just put them in there to show what's going on. The real thing, the real tricky part of this design is getting this overlap right here so that we have a contact form that's part of a top section but appears over top of a bottom section. So I'd like to focus on that. So let's jump back to the back end here and go through all of these, the section, row, and then module settings. All right, so section settings for the top section. White background. That's it. Keep it nice and clean. Row settings. Nothing in general. Nothing in advanced. Nothing in CSS. You can leave that as is. All right, so here's where things get pretty interesting. The contact form that overlaps sections. Leave everything as is, or at least I did in the general settings. In advanced design settings, I just want a nice clean form that had a white background and borders that were the same color as my bottom section's background. So everything here is designed to accomplish that. And the custom CSS is really where the magic happens on this one. So in the main element, I have this CSS. And again, you can get all of this in the accompanying blog post. If you want, you can pause the video and just copy it, but I think it'd be easier to copy and paste. But I'll walk you through it anyway. So padding, I added 40 pixels of padding to the form. Added a box shadow to give it that kind of material shadow behind it, material design style shadow. Margin bottom, so this is where the overlap happens, -200 pixels. And the background color, I made it white. Position, relative, z-index 1. So the position and z-index, this is really important. So here, let's watch what happens when I remove that. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to save it, update my page. And when we look on the front end, you're going to see something interesting. So it actually hides that behind the bottom section. So what I need to do is give the bottom section a z-index lower than my contact form. And that's what that was all about. So I'm going to get back in here. I'm going to go back to my custom CSS tab, my contact form module. Under main element, position relative, z-index 1. And so that means I'm going to have a z-index of 0 for my background section below. And just as a side note, when you're using the z-index, you can't use it unless you have something, unless you give something a position. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's jump down to the bottom section settings. My background color and CSS, position relative under main element, and z-index of 0. So anything with a higher z-index will end up on top of anything with a lower z-index. So I gave this a z-index of 0. I gave my contact form a z-index of 1. And that allowed me to bring that contact form up above the background of the section below it. Okay, and so that's the crux of it. Everything else is just fiddling with the advanced design settings, and all of those will be in the blog post if you want to copy it exactly. But the tricky part is this bit of CSS. Okay, there we have it. 5 unique ways to style Divi's contact form module. As you can see, we start out with something very plain, but over the course of some imagination, some inspiration, and some tweaking, we're able to get some pretty unique designs that will fit on a number of different kinds of websites with very different feels and very different goals. So I hope, if nothing else, in this video, your imagination was sparked with some new possibilities, and you can go out there and create some really cool designs with your contact form module included in them. And there you have it. Those are 5 unique ways that you can style Divi's contact form module. We hope that you're enjoying the Divi 100 Marathon, and we look forward to sharing many more Divi tips and tricks throughout the series. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and email newsletter so you never miss a thing. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Hey Divi Nation, thanks for joining us for day 22 of the Divi 100 Marathon. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 creative ways to use Divi's built-in margin and gutter controls.